Okay, so hi everyone. So how are you all today? Yeah, Assalamualaikum and good morning to everyone today. Thank you so much for coming to our webinar. And I see Dr. Pamila and Dr. Jamila here. Yes. Okay, so Dr. Jamila is our program coordinator and Dr. Pamila is our practical supervisor. So I'm Wan Farah and my co-host.
My name is Intan Sawana. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being with us here today.
Okay, so I hope everyone's comfortable. Okay, we're going to be here for a long 2 hours. Right, so today our webinar will be about suicide intervention. We'll be talking about crisis management and services that mental health professionals can offer. Um, So if you have, so before we start, Intin,
Right. So just a disclaimer, if any of our materials, such as our words or the pictures that we use in this webinar might be triggering to you, you may take a screenshot of these contact numbers. These are crisis helplines for you to call or for you to help assist if you find any of our materials triggering. All right. Yeah, just take your time, take a screenshot, a photo, and then we'll start in a bit.
okay, everyone's done with the screenshot? All right, very good. Right. So before we jump into our webinar, Intan and I have a little something for everyone. Okay, I'll just get started. Intan, I can't do this anymore. It's all too hard. I don't want to do another day of this.
Farah, what are you talking about? You cannot say that. You have so much going on in your life. You have so much going for. You have so much to live for. Tak boleh cakap tau, berdosa tau.
Okay, so this is a little role play for what might sound like when somebody's hitting the end of their rope. And the thing is, all those responses that Intan shared, they're really well meant, right? You're trying to comfort the person when they're visibly upset. But those kind of responses are often really invalidating and they make that person feel really unheard. So that's what we're going to focus on today. How are we going to help people who are having a mental health crisis? So I think
Right. So our topic for our webinar today is suicide intervention. So the way we would approach this webinar is like passing a safety float to the person who is drowning. So the person who is drowning is someone who needs help, right? So us passing the safety float, that is us lending the hand to the person who is drowning. So that is what we're going to talk about today, and the interventions that we're going to show today as well will revolve around that. Okay. Please bear with us. It's going to be a long 2 hours, but we're going to make it short and we're going to make it engaging for you guys as well. We would also like to say, if you have any thing to say, anything to ask us, you can DM us and we'll respond to you if we can. All right? All right. Okay. So, like every day we walk across, like we walk to school, we go to work, we meet a lot of people and we come across a lot of people, right? And we don't know what they're going through in life. So people have their own struggles. Everyone has their own struggles. And that's what we have to bear in mind. Let's take, for example, A or B. Who is most likely to take his own life? Can you guys type your answers in a chat? A or B, who is most likely to take his life? I don't really know, Dr. Jamila. Both A and B. or both can? None. All right. The others, which one? Which one would be your answer?
Or both are possible.
Both are possible or not possible. All right. Thank you, Dr. Misna. A and B, Dr. Familia, thank you. Both can, Farida Hamini, yes. Both possible, maybe. Maybe both are possible. So I see a pattern here. Some say, oh, both are possible, or both are not also possible, right? Okay. So actually, the one on the left here, A, is a suicide survivor, suicide attempt survivor. So he survived his attempt at taking his own life. And B is just a regular person. And as you can see here, the lesson that we can get from here is that suicide has no look. So we cannot judge a person who is suicidal or what a person is going through just by looking at his face, right? So be kind, and as everyone has their own struggles. Okay, so in this webinar, we're gonna bring you on a journey, all right, in a story. Okay, so now you are at a bridge, right? At the ledge of a bridge. Okay. And now meet Alex. All right. The green dude here is called Alex. And he is struggling in life lately. He has no motivation to do his work or to do things in his life. He has been isolating himself as well from his friends, from his family. He has troubles in his relationship as well with his wife. All right, so Alex is at the ledge of a bridge. So what we're gonna see here today is what is it like being Alex? What is it like being Alex? Why is he here at the bridge, at the ledge, right?
So personally, I don't know what it's like to feel suicidal or to have suicidal thoughts. Okay, but we can take a peek, get a glimpse of what it could be like through metaphors shared by people who have had suicidal thoughts or felt suicidal. So if we look at some of the quotes on the slide, the basic theme that we can see is like suicide feels, when you're feeling suicidal, it's everything feels gray and like there's no excitement. You're feeling empty when you know you should be happy, when everything's okay. And it's when the stress is so overwhelming that suicide actually looks comforting the same way we think a walk at the beach or any other relaxing activity is comforting. That's what the stress can do to the person who is already feeling overwhelmed. One of the most, I think for me, the most significant suicide metaphor that I've heard is when the person described it as like you're at the end of the road. There's nothing but darkness in front of you. There's no way out that you can see on the sides. You can't so at the end of the road, you're at the edge and you feel like you're this close to falling over. So when you're all alone and it's so dark, the thought of suicide can almost seem like it's that bright light at the end, and it's like, why not go there? That's the only option you can see anyway.
All right. So we've figured out what it's like for people who have attempted suicide or who are suicidal. So let's look at the statistics, what is happening around the world. So we have more than 700,000 people who die of suicide every year. And suicide is the fourth leading cause of death among 15 to 19-year-olds. And the three common methods that are used are ingestion of pesticide, hanging, and firearms. And also males are more than twice they die due to suicide compared to females. This is from World Health Organization. Right. So let's go by country then. So in the US, around 45,000 people, 4,500,000 people die by suicide, and 1.2 million Americans, they attempted suicide in just 2020 alone. In South Korea, 안녕하세요, 19.54 deaths per 100,000 population in 2019. India, 160,000, and Australia, 3,139 deaths in 2020. And Brazil as well, 13,000 suicide cases in 2019 alone. That is a lot, right? Let's look at Malaysia, our home country. So in Malaysia, in 2019, the suicide rate is 5.8 per 100,000 population. So estimated 1,1841 deaths. So that is 5 deaths per day. Right, it is the second highest suicide rate among selected Muslim majority countries, including Pakistan, Brunei, and so on. And in 2020, the suicide cases are 631. The cases received hospital treatment for 65 and suicide death 266. And in 2021, the suicide cases are 468, and the suicidal calls that Befrienders Malaysia received are around 1,380. And the highest number of cases are found in Selangor. Let me show you another statistic. Right? As you can see here, according to the age, 19 to 40 years of age, they are the majority people who have died by suicide in Malaysia. And this coincides with recent cases where females aged 30 to 40 years old, they died by jumping off a building or off their house, right? So 19 to 40 years of age, and then 872 cases contributed by 15 to 19-year-olds. And as you can see here, according to the year, the cases are increasing. And in 2021, the statistics are just up until May, but it has been increasing year by year. Okay, Farah?
So those are pretty grim numbers altogether, especially with the PKP. There's a really big jump in number of completed suicides. So the thing is, did you know that the Malaysian legal system punishes people who survive their suicide attempt, and they hit this? So these people already survive attempting suicide, and then they get hit with fines which can go up to 3,000, or they get hit with jail time that can be as long as up to a year. Right. So based on the statistics Intan shared just now, it's quite clear that punishing suicide survivors, it does nothing for actually preventing suicides. And that's why there's interest and now a growing movement to decriminalize suicide. Okay, next slide. Okay, so if we look at the timeline, there was a petition going around in August 2020 calling for decriminalization of suicide, and that got over 16,000 signatures. So in October 2021, that's when it officially got started with adjustments to the Section 309 Penal Code. So currently, the decriminalization of suicide is still in review and is being studied by the Attorney General's chambers. So fingers crossed, and we pray that it goes smoothly and it successfully completely decriminalize suicide so that we can focus on actually helping these people.
All right, thank you, Farah. Okay, so we figured out what are the statistics for people who have committed suicide or suicidal cases that are going on around the world and in Malaysia. What is Alex feeling? What is like being Alex, right? So now let's look at the why, all right? Before that, mental health crisis is defined as any sort of self-harm, panic attack, suicidal ideation, getting in trouble with the law, planning or considering hurting oneself or others. And suicide crisis from the National Alliance of Mental Illness, they define it as a crisis involving an attempt to end one's life. So any attempt to end one's life is considered a suicide crisis. Right? So when talking to someone in a suicide crisis, for example, let's take an example, Alex, who is on the bridge at the ledge, right? So the do's are, we would ask him if he is thinking about suicide. You be direct with him and be willing to listen and not be judgmental. And you can't be judgmental during a crisis with someone who is in a crisis, right? You cannot be like, hey, what are you doing? Well, jump lah. No, you cannot do that, right? That is wrong. So that is part of the don'ts. We don't trivialize, we don't condemn them or judge or guilt trip them. Yep, that's an important word right there. And we don't dare him to do it. Oh, jump lah. You're on the bridge lah, kan? Okay, we cannot do that at all. And I'm sure everyone here knows that. We don't ask why, because this would cause this would trigger him or like create a barrier between you and the person. And don't act shocked, be calm, and don't debate whether suicide is right or wrong. It's not the time to say, oh, your values are wrong and my values are right. So that is not the time to do that. Right. So for long-term support for someone in a suicide crisis, the long-term do's are have a plan, get their consent, the person who is in a suicide crisis, set expectations and boundaries that you both the person is comfortable with, practice self-care, ask them to practice self-care, and step back when needed. Be there when they need you, also step back when they don't need you. And the long-term don'ts would be, we don't blame them or shame them. Don't personalize behaviors, because normally, like when we have someone who is, for example, confiding in us that they are having struggles of suicidal thoughts or suicidal ideation. So don't personalize it like to you. Personalize it as your own problem, and don't minimize his problem as well. Okay, so don't ghost them and prevent resentment towards them. All right. So, okay, guys, this is an activity for you. Why do you think people commit suicide? All right. Can just scan the Menti right here and post your answers. And I'll be reading them in a short while. There are 37 people here. Thank you so much. Yep, Izati, the link is right there. Yeah, why do you think people commit suicide? The Menti link is in the chat, everyone. You can also scan the QR code right here. I'll give you some moments. And just enjoy the music as you answer. Okay, interesting. Right. Hopelessness in life. They are in pain. That is so true. They wanted to end the pain. Yep. They don't necessarily want to die, but they want to end the pain, right? Financial issues, definitely. Death, being abandoned by family members. Life sometimes is too hard on people. Exactly. They feel hopeless, no future for them. The pressure to be perfect, perfectionism as well. That is one trait to look forward to end the pain that they have been feeling, feelings of emptiness and loneliness. It's so true. And we have no hope, pressured by the society, societal pressure, right? Not just peer pressure, but also societal pressure. you have to be this and this by a certain age, you have to achieve this and this at a certain age, that would cause some stress on people. Emptiness and nowhere to turn, escape from the pain. They may feel that they are a burden to other people. Yes. Yeah. The guilt that they carry, right? Suffering of depression and schizo. Yes, mental health issues, definitely. Being bullied. Yes. Burnout from work, emptiness inside, nowhere can be turned to, unable to cope with whatever they're facing, feeling overwhelmed to end the pain, emptiness. They feel there's no way out. Thank you so much for sending in your answers. These are all correct answers. And these are all things that we, like most people, feel, right? And these could be the reasons why people resort to taking their own lives. All right. Thank you so much for sending in your answers. Thank you so much. Right. Can you see the 4 pictures here? Does anyone know any of these people here? Robin Williams. Yes, correct. Could we have a copy of all the responses, please? Yes, Dr. Misa. We'll give you all the copies later on. Thank you so much. Anthony Bourdain. Yes, doctor. That's correct. Joyce Sully. Yeah, Sully from FX. Definitely a K-pop star, right? Does anyone know the woman here on the below left, the far left here? Kate Spade. Thank you, Michelle. That is correct. So these are people who have, if from the outside, they have everything going on in their lives. And but they all committed suicide. They took their own lives at one point or another. So this is why intervention is necessary, because they, like the answers that you have provided us, they don't actually want to be dead or want to die. They actually just want to end the pain. And how do we end the pain? They have no other option. They think like they have no other alternatives in life that they can resort to. No support, no one to turn to, no one is listening to them. All right. And so this is why suicide intervention is necessary. The metaphor that I used in the earlier slides, it's like passing a safety float to a person who is drowning, right? Lending a helping hand, right? So this is where we come in, suicide intervention. Right? Over to you, Farah.
Okay. Right. So in suicide intervention, when the person has been pushed to the end of their rope and they're just feeling completely overwhelmed, if they can't see any future, they can't see any support, they feel alone and hopeless, right? Then we can help. Everyone can play a role. Okay, there's no role too small when you can help somebody. So the thing is, there are so that's what we're going to cover in today's webinar. Okay, so there are methods, okay, that the layman, that family, friends, loved ones, and co-workers can do to help. And then for mental health professionals, they will also go over a few evidence-based interventions that are being used around the world for people who are having suicidal thoughts or who have attempted suicide. Okay, so we'll start with the suicide crisis management, specifically the de-escalation, or when you're in a crisis situation, what can you do? So for this section, okay, I'll be talking about the ABC model of crisis intervention. And we'll also show you a slide on who you can call and a really quick one on first aid skills, because just in case you're on site and then you might need them. So the ABC model of the crisis intervention, it was developed by suicidologists in America in the 1980s. So that was during a time when there was a significant economic downturn. So everyone was having economic problems and there was a bit of a suicide epidemic at that time. So in this model, the A stands for achieving rapport, B, boiling down the problem, and C, contracting for action. So the A is the most important part when you're on site. So remember Alex? Okay, so now imagine. So we're gonna try to imagine using the ABC with Alex when you're on the roof, on the ledge with him. So at A, thank you, Doctor. So at A, we have achieving rapport through both our verbal and non-verbal cues, right? So when you're there with a person who is visibly distressed, you yourself want to make sure that you're calm. Okay? You don't need two people who are also both super distressed in one place. So you're going to show through your body language, through your tone of voice, that you're calm, your open body language, safe and non-threatening. So how you can achieve that, right? Is that you start with the first, try to make sure there's no obstacles between you and Alex. Right? And you try to maintain eye contact. This is you trying to show him that yes, you want to listen to him, you're paying attention to him, and you want him to talk to you. Orient your body towards him and try to keep your arms and legs relaxed, open and uncrossed. So when you talk, try to talk at a calm, even tone and avoid why questions. So use more like, oh, calm, use more questions that invite Alex to talk. Right? So either you can ask like, okay, how come? Can you tell me more about that? Or you use empathy statements, okay, where you reflect back to him the emotions that you can observe. Like, wow, when you tell me all of those, I can see that it sounds like you're really frustrated. Because when that person um, is in that state of really, really psychological distress, having somebody else reflect their emotion back to them can actually be really validating. Like, my God, yes, yes, exactly. That's what it feels like right now. Okay, so if you look at the next slide, right? So you can see from so in these two separate situations, like can you try to guess who could be the helper and who could be the person in crisis? You can put that in the chat box, like in pictures 1, 2. Okay. Like in picture 1, do you think is the person on the left, the one with the red hair, or the person on the right is the one with who could be the help based on their body language? Yeah. Okay. So Dr. Misna said, okay, in picture 1, it would in picture 1, it both is yeah, both pictures have the helper. Yep. Yeah, both from Anis and Arena. Both. Yeah, both. Yeah, both pictures have helpers. who are who have yeah, that's a good observation, Dr. Jamila. Thank you. Both men and women have different body languages. Okay. For both, so in both pictures, right, the helpers are showing open body language, and like they orient their body towards the person in distress, and with the uncrossed arms, and there's no physical barrier between them. Okay. Next one. So the validation, this is the most important part of when you are working on achieving rapport with another person. You want to prove that you are listening. You hear what they're saying. And you do that by validating their words. So examples of validating statements, right, would be, I don't understand everything you're going through, but I'm here for you. What I hear you saying is that correct? Is that correct? Is you're checking back with that person to show that yes, I'm trying to understand. I want to listen to what you're saying. So the purpose of these validating statements is to show that you are empathizing with the person. You hear the emotions, the words that they're trying to communicate to you. You're not dismissing them. You're not minimizing them. You're not like ignoring it. You are trying to show them with validated statements. Yes, I hear you. I hear you. I want to hear you keep talking. So as you build rapport with Alex, okay, you encourage him to to talk about, okay, what's he's upset about, what is going on with him. In the next stage, you'll be able to build up to the next stage, which is stage B, boiling down the problem. So in this stage, you're trying to understand what was the problem Alex is facing. So this is where you use a lot more open and closed questions. So open-ended questions are questions that you can't answer with just a yes or a no. So this is a way to encourage him to keep talking. Keep talking. Yes, I'm interested to know what is happening with you. So examples of open-ended questions will be like, okay, what is happening? How long have you been feeling? Tell me more. Close-ended questions are like more direct and specific focused. If you want a specific information from them, and it does help to help yourself understand, okay, so this is the situation I'm seeing. So in this stage, boiling down the problem, it is highly recommended that we try to use more open-ended questions over close-ended questions, because too many close-ended questions could make the situation feel like you're interrogating Alex instead. That can make him feel even more stressed and defensive. So we want to avoid. Okay, next slide. Right, so finally, so the idea is that as we progress from stage A to B, and then we'll reach to C, Alex will be calming down, and we'll be able to gently suggest or get him to suggest, okay, what should we do now? When they say contracting for action, they mean any action that can keep Alex safe for the next 24 hours. So it could be, so if like in the situation we're talking about, Alex is on the ledge. So this ledge, so getting him off the ledge would be the most important part. It's okay. So a safety action could be like you suggest to him that, okay, how about we call ambulance or emergency response services? Or you could suggest to him that, okay, I can accompany you to the emergency services. Okay, so who you can call? Okay, so you can take a share or a screenshot of this slide. Okay, so we have at least 5 options that you can call. You can also call, I know some people, they don't want to go to the emergency services. Okay, so the befrienders could be an option that you can suggest when you're in that situation with Alex, right? Next slide. Yeah. So when you're in a crisis situation, so Alex, just now, Alex is on a ledge. Okay, but other crisis situations that you might find yourself in could be that the person in crisis has, maybe example, overdose on pills. So they are unconscious or they are not very responsive. In this situation, you want to bring in your first aid skills. So today I'll just talk briefly about two, which is the recovery position and CPR. So the recovery position, the point of this position is because we want to keep their airways clear so that they don't, if they do, for example, they might vomit, it, or they want to keep the airways clear so that they don't accidentally choke on it. And in this situation, keeping the airway clear will also help them breathe. Right? So you can see from the picture, the hand will support the head and the knee will keep the body from rolling onto their stomach. So so I like this particular step-by-step instruction because I think it's quite clear. It shows quite clearly how you can get the person into a recovery position in about 5 steps. You grab one hand, you place it above their head, other hand across the cheek, and you grab both the knee and the elbow and you roll over to the side. Okay. And this is what you use while you're waiting for the ambulance or emergency services. Okay, so if you can try to call the emergency services before you do it. And also before you do CPR as well, right? You also call the ambulance or the emergency services first, then you do it. And next slide. So before this, we heard of CPR as it involves both your hands and you have to give them like breathing. Okay, but now we have hands only CPR. Right? So before you try CPR, you always try to check their consciousness level first. Then you call emergency services. Then you carry out the CPR with your hands. I think the main tip for doing successful CPR is that you have to lock your elbows and you push really hard. Has anyone ever heard of the Staying Alive song? Like staying alive, staying alive, staying alive. So yeah, that song can be very helpful in trying to keep the right rhythm for as you push against the chest. Yeah, the Bee Gees. Okay, so that's for when you're on site with somebody in a crisis situation. Okay, next one. Okay, so okay, before I give over to my co-host, okay, before I give over to my co-host, then the ABC model can be used by anyone, right? So if you are in a situation where you see that your family, friends, co-workers, neighbors might be in a possible crisis situation, you can try using the ABC model as a way to de-escalate things until the professionals can come. So make sure you do call emergency responses. Okay, so moving over to
All right. Thank you, Farah. I really like the song that you sang just now, Staying Alive, Staying Alive. Yeah. I remember seeing the song being sung at The Office series. I don't know if anyone have watched it, but it's very vivid in my mind. Yeah, I remember that straight away. Okay. Yep. So as Farah has mentioned just now, those are the ways of how the role of loved ones, how they can help, how we as a family member or as a friend can help others. Okay, now we're going into the nitty-gritty of things. So what can professionals do, or mental health professionals do? So even though some of us here are not mental health professionals, these can also be an information for you to just learn and take note of. Yeah, right, let's go. Okay, so another question for you guys. Which picture can you relate to? A or B? Do you mind typing it in the chat box? B, okay. Dr. Jamila B, Tasnim both. Michelle A. Both. Okay, Arina. Okay, both. Okay. Putri Intanyana, thank you so much. And Monoji, you have both as well. Okay, Farah A. Okay. All right. Thank you everyone for sending in your chats, right, in the DM. Okay, so these are some emotions that we all go through at some points in our lives, right? Hopelessness, feelings of worthlessness, hopelessness, crying, sadness, okay? And these are feelings, or these are situations that people who have attempted suicide or people who are suicidal can relate to. They can also relate to either of these pictures, just like us, right? And so this is where mental health professionals come in. How can they help? Right? So in a suicide crisis management, the role of mental health professionals can be seen by suicide risk assessment as well as interventions, right? So suicide risk assessment is a process of determining how seriously someone is thinking about and or planning for a suicide. So we need to make sure, okay, how serious is he thinking about it? How is he planning to do it? Is he gonna do it like tomorrow, today? So how serious is it? How severe, the severity of it, of the condition. So there are 5 steps here. We need to first identify risk factors. Second, identify protective factors. Third, conduct suicide inquiry. Fourth, determine risk levels. And 5, determine the intervention that is needed for that person in crisis. All right, so let's go through it one by one. Please bear with us, everyone. Okay, so the first step, identify risk factors. So risk factors are factors that increase the risk of suicide for a person to go through with suicide. And these can include trauma, feeling trapped, feeling hopeless or purposeless. Yes, the ones that you mentioned just now in the Mentimeter, right? Hopelessness, purposelessness, and social withdrawal as well, past suicidal behavior and attempts. These are very important. These are, I would say, the one of the major risk factors that we must pay attention to if they have previously had suicidal behaviors or attempts. All right. And then significant changes in mood, increased anxiety, irritability, lack of self-control, impulsivity as well. All right. Increase of recklessness in doing things, for example, and history of mental illnesses, for example, depression, schizophrenia. Okay. The next step would be we would identify the protective factors. All right. After identifying what are the risks that would increase their tendency to go through with suicide, we need to identify what protects the person in crisis. What are his or her protective factors? Okay, we would ask questions like, when you have thought about killing yourself or ending your life in the past, what has stopped you? I remember a personal story of mine. A friend of mine told me she crossed the road one day. She was in campus. She crossed the road one day and it was a busy road, even though it's like in campus because everyone's like going out of the campus. So it was a busy road. She has thoughts of just stopping in the middle of the road and not doing anything. And she wouldn't mind being like crushed by a car or Yeah. So these are the thoughts that a friend of mine, a close friend of mine, have had. And when I asked her, what has stopped you from going through with it, right? From just staying in the middle of the road and not crossing to the other side. And she said things like her parents, her religion, and also her sisters, right? So her family are protective factors. Her faith could be her protective factors as well. Okay. And then mental health professionals could ask questions like, who are the people in your life that give you fuel for life, help you feel better, or lift your spirits? I'm pretty sure if we ask ourselves the questions right now, Pun, we can find the answers, right? Like, who are the people? Like, we already imagine like certain images of people, like pictures of people in our heads, right? Okay, so these are the people, these are our life. Okay. And we'll also ask questions in the past. What activities have helped you turn a corner, lift your spirits, feel more stable? It could be activities like watching Running Man or K-dramas, right? Or even as simple as, going to the cinema, all right? And tengok the latest, what is the latest drama? So, movie, maybe the Korean one, the one with the flight. Okay. Yeah. So these are the sort of activities that could help someone lift their spirits. And these are the questions that you could ask, a mental health professional could ask to identify the person in crisis's protective factors. Okay, the third step is conduct suicide inquiry. All right, we would ask the suicidal ideation. How frequent is it? How frequent does it happen? In a week, in a day? How many hours? How many minutes? The intensity of it. Okay, and also the duration. The duration now, the current duration that he or she is having the suicidal ideation, or in the past, and when was it at its worst? Okay, and we can also plan timing, location, lethality, ability or means, all right, to see where is that person at in committing suicide or his preparation to commit suicide. And we would also ask about past behaviors, past attempts, aborted attempts, and rehearsals. Okay, and we would also mention about intent. Okay, the extent to which they expect to carry out the plan and believe the plan to be either lethal versus harmful. All right, after we conduct the suicide inquiry, after we inquire them about their suicidal ideation, where would they do it? How would they do it? Have they done it before? Have they done it but aborted? Have they done it but canceled last minute? Then we would determine the risk level. So we have 3 levels here: low risk, moderate risk, and high risk. Okay, so low risk would include few or modifiable risk factors. The person has strong protective factors, and their thoughts of death are without intent or plan or behavior. All right, so just a few risk factors and strong protective factors. And your role, what you can do as a mental health professional, is to get referrals from the person and find the person's resources, and also provide emergency crisis numbers and symptom reduction as well. So emotional support is very important at this stage because they don't have thoughts of death. They have no intent, no intention to do it, no plans, no behaviors yet. So emotional support is very important to make sure they are in that box. They are safe there. Okay, next would be moderate risk. All right, this is a person in crisis who has multiple risk factors, okay, and few protective factors. And they have suicidal ideation, means they have thoughts about suicide, of committing suicide or suicidal thoughts with a plan, but not behavior or no intention. All right. So what would your role do as a mental health professional? Create a crisis plan and suicide precaution. Okay. Admission to hospital, as well as providing emergency crisis numbers, removing access to suicide methods. All right. It could be any lethal weapons or any sorts of medication that would cause or person or hanging, so ropes, can be considered as suicide matters as well. Okay, and you have to follow up with the person, because these are this person has multiple risk factors. So but only few protective factors. Checking them frequently and continuing to assess their suicide risk. So even on a simple scale of 1 to 10, you could do that as well. So a person who is at a high risk would be a person who has multiple risk factors, protective factors not present. Okay, so persistent suicidal ideation or suicidal rehearsal or potentially lethal suicide attempt. So these are the people who checked all the boxes. Okay, what would your role be as a mental health professional? Taking immediate steps to guarantee their safety, to make sure that, okay, you're safe. These are the steps that you could ensure. And checking for suicide attempts in progress, okay, referrals, possible hospitalization as well, if they don't think they can remain safe throughout the night or throughout the period that they have those rehearsals or ideations or attempts. Okay, so after we determine the risk levels, we move on to the last step, which is we would determine what type of intervention should we give this person in crisis. Okay, so this would go into therapy. So we have SPI, safety planning intervention, lethal means counseling, LMC, crisis response planning, CRP, and the Pieta House suicide intervention model, PHSIM. Right, I'll be handing it over to my co-speaker in a bit. Right, please bear with us, everyone.
Were you upset when you found out you were still alive?
No. I mean, I think most people that are suicidal don't actually want to die. They just want to end the suffering. A daily suffering of suicidal thoughts is not a quality of life.
How do you think the right way to act in those situations is?
You mean when you're feeling like trying to end your life? Well, I think, it's important to talk to the people that are supposed to care about you, because if you let it go and just say, oh, I don't have a problem, that's not going to go away, Talk to your family, maybe go see a therapist, do what you need to do to take care of your mental health, because that's more important than saying, I don't have a problem, I don't need help, because you don't want to suffer,
Did you get help to help you get better?
Yeah, I have been seeing therapists, that has really helped me as a person, because it's helpful to have somebody to talk to about stuff you may not be comfortable with sharing with others,
Thank you, Ben. And yeah, so that video is a short excerpt from the YouTube video Kids Meet a Survivor of a Suicide Attempt. So from there we can see that people who attempt suicide, once the feelings has passed, the urge to attempt suicide has passed, they're glad to be saved, because it's not death that they're seeking. It's the end of pain, the escape from the stress or the overwhelmed feeling. So there's no small role when we try to help, when we want to help people. And so after this, I'll be talking about the 3 interventions out of the 4 that Ethan mentioned: the safety planning intervention, the lethal means counseling, and the crisis response planning. So Ethan will be covering the Pieta House suicide intervention model. Right. So for the first intervention, the safety planning intervention is developed as a brief standalone intervention and is intended to reduce suicide risk. And Dr. Stanley and Dr. Brown developed the SPI as an alternative to the no suicide contract. So part of the reason why they developed the SPI is because some of the feedback that people who have received the no suicide contract gave was that they don't like, or they feel this they feel like the contract is more about protecting the therapist or the mental health care professional rather than actually helping the person who is feeling suicidal. So for them, there's that coercive element, right? Like, so it's like rather than helping them, for some people, the no suicide contract is feels more like a source of stress because it's like, oh, okay, now I'm being forced to do it. I don't feel like this is something I want to do for myself. So the SPI is developed as an alternative to them and is listed as a best practice by the Suicide Prevention Resource Center for suicide prevention. So how does it work? The safety planning intervention. So what it does is that after a risk assessment is conducted, the person conducting the risk and then took the information that they've collected. Anyone remember the 5 steps in the suicide risk assessment? And there was the risk factor, the protective factor. Yeah, so what the information that they've collected on the risk factors and the protective factors can then be used to develop the person's safety planning intervention. Next slide. In the safety planning intervention, they will collaborate with that person to make a list of potential coping strategies, a list of helpful individuals or agencies, and both of these will help that person to lower their risk of suicidal behavior because when they notice that they're having the suicidal urges or the triggering experiences, then they know there is this list that they can turn to. So what makes it effective as a intervention for people with suicidal thoughts or feelings? Next slide. What makes it effective is that is the client, the person who is going to fill it in. So you can see that from the top, they first will write down, okay, what are the warning signs that they notice? Then what can they do by themselves to deal with those in response to the warning signs? Okay, and if that's not working, who can they call? Where can they go that can distract them from the suicidal urges or feelings? Who can they ask for help? And finally, if steps 2, 3, and 4 is not enough, they have there are professionals or agencies that they can call. Hang on, I would like to share with you all, okay, what it looks like when the SPI form is actually filled in. Okay. Okay, hang on, can everybody see my screen? Yes. Yeah. Okay. So this is what it looks like when it's filled in. So you can see here the warning signs the person filled in, like, okay, the warning signs are they're having the thoughts, they notice that these are the feelings that they're having. They also notice along with the suicidal urges are the urges to drink. And warning sign could also be a particularly triggering event. So in this case, intense arguing with a girlfriend. So from there, it's slowly you list in what are their coping strategies that they can try in escalating from what they can do alone to coping strategies that can involve other people. And then the last part, keeping the environment safe. So to make it effective, especially this part is related to the warning signs. So preferably step 6 is directly relevant to what are the warning signs that you've identified from the suicide risk assessment. Okay. I'll intern back to the slides just now. Okay. First. Okay. Okay. So the SPA is designed as a standalone, meaning that it's after the suicide risk assessment is done, and the person is low or moderate, they, it is possible to send them back with just this SPI. Okay. For the more severe cases where the person, okay, after the risk assessment, they get the moderate or high risk rating, then when the hospital is involved or they do make it all the way to therapy. Okay, so that's when the other two interventions come in. Okay, the LMC, lethal means counseling, and the crisis response planning. Okay, so next slide. So the lethal means counseling is developed by the Harvard School of Public Health. It's also known as counseling on access to lethal means. So the concept of it is to prevent suicide by assessing whether the person who is at risk for suicide has access to lethal means. And the most important part is the safety message and the involvement of their loved ones. So with the safety message, the mental health care provider is expressing to the person that they empathize with how they're feeling, that they also care about that person, and that they want to work together with the person to keep themselves safe. Because the suicidal urges that they experience, even though it can be very strong and overwhelming at the moment, it will pass. And so that's why reducing or removing access to potentially lethal means will be really helpful in keeping them safe until the urges pass. So one of the ways that helps, okay, so the next slide, I'll be talking about one of the really not popular, one of the more widespread ways of attempting suicide is by overdosing on medication or consuming dangerous substances such as pesticides. So if we go more in depth into that, so for medications or for dangerous substances, it is recommended that we keep small quantities on hand, but everything else is locked away. The idea is you want to slow down the person's ability to access these medication or dangerous substances until the urge has passed. Or for the case of medication, limit whatever is on hand so that even if they do take everything from everything there, the amount is not enough to cause serious or permanent harm. Another tip is to dispose of any medication that is unused or expired. I think Caring Pharmacy has a safe disposal scheme for expired or unwanted medications. And the mental health care professional and the person can also work together with a pharmacist who can advise on specific medications and quantities of certain medications. So if they need a regular prescription, then a weekly or a monthly refill might be safer compared to having a large amount. So family and loved ones can also get involved at this point where they can help manage the refills. So going just to reminder about the safety message is that the idea is that we want them to know that the suicidal urges will pass, but when it does come, doing the lethal means counseling will help them find ways to keep themselves safe in that moment, because life crisis problems will come, but they know they can keep themselves safe. Okay. Oh, and the last intervention, the crisis response planning. So this is a brief intervention where it's based on the fluent vulnerability model, where the model describes that we all have like this baseline risk for suicidal thoughts and behaviors. So most of the time we're at that particular level. But if something happens, a triggering event, a life stressor like work problems, relationship problems, when that comes, it, from the baseline risk, the risk increases. There's an acute risk. The fluctuation activated by those events causes the risk to rise like very, very high. So at that moment, when the risk is very high, that's the moment where the person is most at risk of attempting suicide. So the idea of the CRP is that we want to manage that acute suicide crisis by having a tailored response to these triggering events. So a standard crisis response plan will have warning signs, the personal warning signs, self-management coping strategies that will involve activities and other people. Then step 3 is to activate social support. And step 4, that's the highest level, they access professional services. So similar to the safety planning intervention, the crisis response planning is a highly collaborative process. This is not the therapist telling the client, you need to do this. This is what you should do after this. Okay, don't you want to stay safe? It has to be that you go into this crisis response planning with the intention of collaborating with the person. Okay, because the person is ultimately the one who will keep themselves safe. Right? So you can see from the examples that it's effective, that is effective because these are all written in the person's handwriting. They're the ones who's going to write it. They are going to carry it around. They contribute that this is what works for me. So I like that some of their ideas would be like going for a walk, watching TV, thinking about beach or a vacation. All of these things, right? Like you can also make your own, like if these are my warning signs that I'm going to get really upset or have like a really bad day, what can I do to take control of the situation and calm myself down? The principle is quite similar. Okay, so those are the 3 interventions that a mental health professional can offer to a person with suicidal feelings or thoughts. And now I'll give over to Inti.
All right. Thank you so much, Farah. I was just wondering, I was looking at this slide right now, right? So it stated the reasons to live. What are your reasons to live, Farah?
My reasons. Okay, my reasons to live. My God. So that will be my family, definitely. That would be because there's so many things that I want to do. Right? I don't have an official bucket list, but I do have like one in my head. And I want to, there's so many things I also want to learn. Yeah, so pretty much, yeah. Oh, good. I love that question. And thank you.
Yeah, so much to learn, so little time. That's usually the case, right? I love how you mentioned family first. I am the same way. I think when I was at my lowest point, at a point in my life before, I used to think about what would my family think of me if I continue to be in this situation or in this circumstance. So yeah, they are my reasons to live. Same, Farah. Thank you for that answer. Okay, So Farah has explained the other three interventions. So the last one, I would briefly explain about the Pieta House Suicide Intervention Model. So it is the PHSIM, all right? So the Pieta House is actually an Irish suicide intervention charity where they offer free counseling services to people who struggle with suicide and also deliberate self-harm. Okay, so in the therapy, the therapist would, in pre-therapy, would make first contact with the client, assess the client's risk and suitability of the plan, and also the risk assessments that I've mentioned just now. But they have to identify whether it is low, moderate, or high risk. Okay, and then they would move on into the therapy sessions, where the first and second sessions would be the introduction and identification sessions. This is where they would establish rapport, they would hear the stories from the client, and they would identify the reasons for living that we have discussed just now, me and Farah, versus the reasons for dying as well, and to live the suicidal ideation. And this would be assessed in the 9 boxes assessment, all right? And then they would go into the core therapy sessions, where they would go into the client's physical needs, emotional needs, and aspirational needs. All right. So the physical needs, they would explore health, work or school, hobby. So this is to stimulate the pleasurable activities that they have enjoyed before. Okay. And in terms of the emotional needs, they would explore relationships, family, friends. And in the case where the client has no or little family or friends relationship, they would explore your relationship with the significant other. Okay, and aspirational needs they would explore the client's spirituality of giving back and self-improvement. And then they would close the session where they would identify or they would determine the coping strategies that would be implemented or implemented by the client or implemented to the client for the client to practice, guided imagery by the therapist, a care plan, okay, a therapy ending, and they would refer the client to appropriate services, okay? So for post-therapy, there would be follow-ups. So a 2-week follow-up, 4 weeks, and a 6-week follow-up. Okay, so the whole point or the whole idea of the Pieta House Suicide Intervention Model is to develop protective factors of the clients. So it is to show them that they have these factors to hold on to that could protect them from their own suicidal ideation, suicidal thoughts, suicidal behaviors, and so on. Right? Okay, Farah?
Okay, so if we sum up the interventions we discussed today, the ABC is sort of the most applicable, is the most wide, the one that everyone can use. Especially the skills in ABC, the validation skills, the empathy skills, those will be used in the other interventions, because like you need that connection with the person in order to help them to trust you enough that they will share that information with you. So we go through it one by one. Then the ABC is standalone. You don't really need any material. You just have to bring your empathy and your active listening skills. With the SPI, this is suitable for directly after the risk assessment, and it's also standalone. So in therapy, there's a range. So there's actually more suicide interventions than these, but for the purposes of today's webinar, we're only covering these 3: the lethal means counseling, crisis response planning, and the Pieta House model. Right, and you can see one major similarities in all of these interventions. It is the focus on protective factors. You can have a lot of risk factors, but if you can also identify and develop protective factors in your problem-solving skills, the people around you, the activities you're involved in, community involvement, those protective factors is what can help the person to hold on in the face of that overwhelming suicidal thoughts and feelings. So after this, we got a breakout room activity for everyone.
Okay, yes. So I've seen a few of you guys have just came in. Welcome to our webinar. Okay, you've entered just at the right time where we would have like some fun and like some activities. So just the right timing. Okay, right. Okay, so I would be explaining what would the activity consist of. Okay, this activity is called What Would You Say to Alex? Remember Alex, the green dude right here? Okay, so we will break you up. We will separate you guys into groups or into breakout rooms where there would be 5 people in each room. Okay, so 1 person will be Alex, 3 people will be the helpers, and 1 would be the observer. So remember, Alex is at the bridge, on the bridge at the ledge, all right? So what would you say as helpers to Alex, all right? Alex will be saying things like, oh, he doesn't know what to do with his life. He just wants to end it. Okay, what would you as helpers say to him? Okay, and then the purple dude right here, the observer, okay, you would be observing the conversation or the dialogues between the helpers and Alex, okay, and you would tell how do you feel about their interaction? What would you have changed? What would the helpers say more to assist Alex or to comfort Alex more? Okay, right. So these are the instructions. Select who among you will be Alex, observer, and 3 helpers. Okay, again, if you're the green dude, if you're Alex, okay, you want to jump off the ledge. Okay, there will be dialogues prepared for you, Alex, so you can just use that dialogue, or you can feel free to be creative and create your own dialogues and create your own lines and like be in character, like you are Alex, you are on that bridge at the ledge, okay, as you see fit. And then for the 3 helpers, all right, each helper would take 10 talking to Alex, okay? They would choose like different lines. Of course, the dialogues or the lines, there are some examples that will be given to you as well. But remember, be creative, change it up, okay? Be empathetic or respond to what Alex is saying, okay? Use your own words, okay? And the observer, okay? You would share how you feel listening to the helpers' attempts to help Alex, okay? How does Alex react to the different lines being said from the helpers? How do the helpers react to Alex's responses? Okay, you will be observing the whole interaction and you will be sharing your own opinions or your own experience doing that, okay? So these are some examples, right? Examples of introduction. Alex would say, oh, I just want to end this. I cannot imagine living the rest of my life like this. And the helpers could choose any of these lines. Can I please talk to you for a few minutes? I'm so sorry for what you're facing. Would you mind if you can just sit down for a moment? Okay. Or just add up your own dialogues, your own lines. Okay. Feel free to do that. That is the introduction. And then what are the continuing responses from Alex? Why would you help me? You can't help me. I've been struggling like this for what, 2 years? What's done is done. I'm done trying, right? So what would the helpers say to that, right? What would the helpers say to that? Okay, so these are, again, examples for you to use, but you can also feel free to keep the conversation going, what would you say to help Alex, to help him probably like not pull, but to help him go further away from the ledge as you can. All right. So we'll be providing the link for the instructions of the activities in each of the breakout room. So you will have access to all of this later on. Okay. Farah and I will be jumping into each breakout room, okay, to assist you guys as well and to see how you guys are doing, okay, and to help you in any way that you need. Okay, remember guys, have fun, Alex, immerse in your role. Helpers, be immersed in your role. Observer, observe. Comment, critic. Okay, so we'll see you guys soon.
Okay. So
Hi, hello.
you see the instructors are there. We haven't really sort out things yet.
I see. Okay. All right, no rush.
We couldn't get the the link.
Oh, tak dapat
the
eh?
link tak dapat.
Yes, yes.
Oh, tak dapat ke?
Couldn't.
Oh, sekejap
Can I
please,
click
sekejap
on
ya.
the link? Mana dia share the link? Ask for help. Record rooms. So,
Can you share it here, Intan?
huh? Oh, okay, now.
Sorry, Intan, my friend Intan.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Sorry, Dr. Intan.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
yes, I can get access to the link.
Have you gotten the link? Yes.
Yes,
You
yes,
put it in
I
the chat.
have it.
Okay. Okay. All the
Okay,
best.
now.
Yeah.
Yes.
We'll be seeing you guys later.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Oh, ini saja skrip dia. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Arina, if you mind telling me what is actually happening and playing in your mind right now? What is actually bothering you the most?
I think it mostly comes from this uncertainty about the future, because right now I'm having a lot of thoughts and I keep on comparing a lot, but I keep on comparing myself.
Encik Muhammad Afiq is not around. So either Miss Unknown or Miss Anis. Are you around, Miss Unknown, Miss Anis? Oh, we have our speaker here. So our speaker in this room. We are still finding out who'll become the helper.
Oh, okay.
Okay, sure, doctor.
All right, no problem.
Take your time.
Yeah.
We just sent the link in the chat. Yeah, so you can use that as guidance.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, good luck.
Okay. Have fun, everyone.
Okay. Why don't we just try to Najiha, you act as an Alex, and then probably
Tak tahu.
Can I give you a hug, please?
Ya. Adik, buat bertenang dulu. Be calm. I believe that there are somebody yang masih need you, still love you. Jangan buat keputusan terburu-buru.
Tapi semua ni saya dah tak boleh dah. Macam
Jangan
mana?
macam tu. Semua masalah ada penyelesaian dia.
Tapi
Okay.
masalah tak ada penyelesaian dia. Satu masalah
No.
tu datang lagi.
Mari kita duduk dulu, kita bincang dulu. Maybe anything that we can help you? Sebab I rasa mungkin you keseorangan. I believe that you need friends. We can be your friends.
Saya tak
We
tahu.
can be your friends.
Saya tak rasa orang faham hadapi.
Jangan macam tu. Take your time. We are here. Boleh akak dekat Kak Adik. I think you need somebody to talk to. And we are here.
Okay,
Please lah, jangan buat keputusan terburu-buru. Ingat orang yang sayang kat you. Adik ada parents lagi tak? You still have parents?
Ada.
You see? Semua parents dalam dunia ni, dia nak anak dia berjaya.
Okay. Alright, so they're in here. We haven't started. Okay,
It's okay, go on.
Yeah, it's alright. Take your time.
So we
Okay.
were talking about the person saying that they want to end their life, right? And then what was the appropriate response? I didn't feel like participating because I feel like this was a training for the students that Dr. Madam Aini did and the Familia did for students peer psychosocial support. Yeah. I think the most
Nanti tak apa. No, it's just that we don't have many people, so itu je lah. I think I have, I'm not sure. Siapa yang ada? Wan Farida?
Yes, yes, doctor. Sorry, I'm sharing with
Siapa yang
my
ada
friend.
one or they chase you?
Yes.
Have the support system there. You still have the support system, which is your friends. You still have
Mm.
something that you are more than other people, maybe because outside there are some people who don't have friends, who don't have a place to reach out. So
Yeah.
having a friend, your friends is your protective factor. So
Mhm.
if like one day like you experience something that you can't, for example, can't control the feeling is so immersed, you are overwhelmed with the hopelessness and the feeling of wanting to end the life, maybe at that time you can try to reach them. Then you can try just reach them out for help. At least you can have someone to talk to.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's kind of like helpful a bit for me to open up to them, because sometimes I feel, I know they offered me help like that, macam listen to my problems and all that, like being there for me. But sometimes I also have this kind of feeling like I don't want to them trouble them for like listening to my ridiculous stories, macam all those things, because I consider macam my moments macam ni, it's considered like dark moments in my life. So some of my friends, I think because they are all different, right, they all have different reaction to my problems, so maybe they cannot handle it. And sometimes when they listen to my problems, I also have this kind of expectation for them to react. So sometimes when I open up to them and they are not reaching to my standard or expectations,
Yeah.
then I became like sad for some reason. But I also know that they are just they don't have any capabilities to solve my problems. They just being there for me to listen my problem. So
Yeah.
I should not expect more than that, because that's not what a human being can do. They are not a problem solver for everyone's problems, right? So
Betul.
sometimes I um macam mesti apa orang kata reflect balik macam mana role diorang, and what is their limitations, what they can do and what they cannot do. So yeah, you know, sometimes the feelings is kind of like blurry. You have positive and negative mix at the same time, so you can't really separate that. But yeah, as long as I step back from that kind of thoughts and like think more clearly, I think it should be fine. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that you have a very good insight tau over this thing. You can like plan.
And then might be that's all.
So you want to end your pain by committing suicide. Can I learn from you that you did mention that you have been thinking about this for about 1 week?
Yes.
Right? And did you do anything for the past 1 week apart from do you have any plan on how you are going to end your life?
There's several attempts I already made. I already overdose on Panadol for I think for about 20 pills tabs. And 2 days ago, I already put knife in my hand trying to cut the vein here to make sure that I ended my life, but I couldn't cut it deeper.
Tapi saya
Okay.
takut sebenarnya.
Yes, yes. Maknanya marah pada diri sendiri, nak habiskan kehidupan macam yang tak nampak apa-apa kat depan ni. Tapi at the same time, you are feeling very anxious about ending the life kan? Sebab kenapa kita rasa anxious? Boleh agaknya share. Kenapa rasa takut? At the end of the day, you rasa takut nak end the life. Can we share? Can you share that?
Sebab saya tahu nanti mak ayah saya mesti sedih kalau saya dah tak ada adik-adik saya lagi, dah tak ada.
Ya, mak sedih, adik sedih. Siapa lagi agaknya yang membuatkan, apa lagi agaknya yang membuatkan Lisa rasa takut tu tadi?
Saya tahu kita orang Islam tak boleh buat benda-benda macam ni. Tapi saya dah tak nampak jalan keluar dah.
Ya, maknanya itu yang buat rasa takut nak teruskan apa tu lah kan tadi, intention tadi kan. But do you feel happy or feel relieved that we are here with you? Dia ada orang yang stop you. Rasa macam relieved, ada rasa apa bila kami ada kat sini ni? How do you feel?
Saya ingatkan sebelum ni macam tak ada orang pun akan kisah. Like kalau saya tak ada pun, orang mungkin akan perasan tapi mungkin lepas sehari atau 2 hari. Tapi saya tak tahu pula akan ada orang datang untuk cakap dengan saya macam ni.
Ya, oh okey. Alhamdulillah kan, maknanya ada kita tak nampak tapi ada orang sayang kat kita kan, walaupun kita tak perasan. Kita tak perasan ya. Ada orang sayang, cuma kita tak perasan. Tapi yang penting kita sayang diri kita kan. Alexa sayang diri Alexa tak?
Aduh, apa yang saya nak sayang kat diri saya?
That sounds very tough. That sounds very tough. You cannot find anything to sayang about yourself. Is it? Yeah.
Saya banyak sangat kelemahan.
Right. Okay. So yes, perhaps would you like to macam kita kalau kita kita ajak untuk counselling ya, misalnya kita ajak untuk counselling. Alexa sudi tak untuk hadir ke counselling untuk membantu Alexa mencari kenapa aku ni tak sayang diri aku.
Tapi dia orang faham ke kalau saya cerita?
Kita counselling ni memang keperluan seorang untuk counselling ni memang itulah tujuannya yang sebenar. Tujuan asalnya untuk bantu kita memahami diri kita. Ya, kita tak macam kita ni sekarang ni kan. Sekarang ni tak ada.
Oh, do you consent to being recorded?
Sorry, I don't think so. I don't know. 5 minutes more.
5 minutes more. I feel like this is hard. You know, like I don't think I can ever understand what you're going through, you know, but probably you can share a little bit more so we can be off listening to you, because it's not that we don't want to be here for you. We actually do, and we hope that you continue to stay with us. And then tell us how you feel. We can't promise to make it better, but we can promise you that we'll stay here until you feel okay.
Thank you so much for that. I think I needed that to like feel like someone is actually listening, even though they can't really help.
Have you never felt that way before?
Always.
I can't promise I can make a difference, because I feel like the strongest person that can help you is yourself, you know. but doesn't mean that I don't want to help you either, you know? So like, if you can share a little bit more, what's on your mind right now?
It's too much feeling, I guess.
Is it?
I don't even know where to start or what are those feelings.
If you can choose an emoji or even a meme to indicate how you feel, which one would you choose?
It would be the one, mm, maybe a meme of not doing anything, just lay around and yeah, not wanting to do anything or isolating myself just on the corner of the room.
Is it because you feel like the world doesn't deserve you or no one can ever understand you?
It's like I am not even the main character in my life, maybe.
You feel, but aren't you always the center of your life? Don't you feel that? Because the most important person in your life is you, or no
Yeah,
one.
but I never really feel that way before.
I
It's
see.
always revolved around someone else.
See, that must have been really difficult for you to go through.
It is.
How does that make you feel when does it feel like no one's paying attention to you?
It's like I will never matter to anyone else.
But now that you come to talk to us today, how do you feel about that?
It feels okay, I guess. I've never really talked to anyone else.
Is there anything that we can do to make you feel like you are actually worthy of our time as well?
Hi,
Right.
Ethan.
Hi everyone.
Yeah.
How was it today? Yeah.
Yeah, we have done the role play, but not yet the observer part.
Okay. So yeah, the observer, we're planning to have it everyone back to the main room, and then we'll ask the observers to share. Nanti observer, who's the observer in this room?
It's Nia and Siti Sawia.
Nia and Siti Salvia. Okay. So Nia and Siti Salvia will be asking your responses nanti. Okay. After this. Yeah. Okay. We'll be going out of the breakout room soon. Yep.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so
Okay.
much. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Tan, Farah.
Nice. Good job. Good job.
Yeah, thank you, Tan, Farah.
Okay. And three. Okay.
I think at this let's go to ICU and get a treatment, yeah, or at least if you think that you cannot do that, let's call a hotline crisis. And every time at night when there are, you're thinking about your girlfriend and you think that you want to attempt cutting yourself or you attempted to overdose yourself, these are the numbers that
But it's such a good
I
part.
really hope that
Macam
I
mana
really
buat
hope
cancel ni?
that you can call, or if you think that you want to call me as your friend, I will be able to help you out and talk to you at that time. If I can't take your call. Remember that these are the numbers that you can call.
Okay, everyone.
Would you like that? Would you like to try this number with me now? We can call this number now and just give it a try.
All right. Okay, guys, that was beautiful, Dr. Jamila. Okay, and also, yeah, it was really awesome. Okay, so after this, we're gonna go back to the main room and we're gonna ask the observers to share their observation.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Awesome job, Harper.
Yes.
And amazing job,
Alex.
Thank you, Dr. Jamila.
Thank you.
Okay, so how's everyone feeling? We saw some really good conversations just now. There was some very nice applications of the ABC model. I'm so excited to see that. So now that the helpers and Alex, they've gone through that conversation, then the crisis management, the crisis is now managed. So observers, okay, I'm calling on our observers to share what have you observed? What did you see? How did you see the Alex respond to the helpers, and how did the helpers respond to Alex? And what do you think about the what comments or observations, ideas that you have? Okay, so I think it's a Mentimeter for share out loud, or you can share in the chat.
And also you can just maybe, if you don't want to voice out your experiences or chat, you can just send us an emoji in the chat so we know like where you are at right now and how was the experience for you. Okay, awesome job, everyone. Yeah, me and Farah were jumping around in the break rooms just now, and yeah, we saw some really meaningful conversations. Yeah, observers, would you like to share, like send an emoji in the chat? What do you think about the whole conversation and yeah, the whole helpers helping Alex? How was it for you?
Well, to me, it was conducted professionally, and I think help has been granted. Both actually presented very well. I think Alex was very clear in the way he expressed himself, and then also the assistant given to Alex to me was really very good. I guess the session was conducted professionally.
Thank you, Dr. Kabuye. Yeah, that was we're really glad to hear that. And by the sound of it, it sounds like you had an interesting time during the breakout room session. And Dr. Pamilia, okay, each helper played a very distinct role in helping Alexa. That was useful in providing empathy and kindness and help. Thank you, Doctor. Yep. And else? Okay, congratulations from Datin Sabario. Okay, thank you, Datin.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for that. We hope you enjoyed the activity that we have conducted now. You all did a very good job. Okay, so now let's see. Where is Alex right now? Or Alexa, right? So Alex or Alexa, as you can see, he or she is not on the ledge anymore. Okay, it's on the road, safe and sound, but still green because he's a green dude. It's a green, yeah. So he's safe and sound. So the crisis is managed. Congrats, everyone. Congratulations. Okay. Now, yeah, so we're gonna have like a short Q&A session, or maybe just reflections from the whole for our webinar. What do you think? What were the points that you would take from the session just now? Okay, we'd like to hear from you. Right, you can scan the QR code here, or we have the link, yep, in the chat for everyone to click. All right, I'll play some songs for you in the meantime.
Thank you, messages, Sanjida. Okay, so while we wait for the responses, questions, or reflections, thank you, Dr. Miza, the trainees did great in highlighting the strength. That's what we saw as well while we were hopping from one breakout room to another. We see that there were some really nice applications of the validation part, the active listening part from the A of the ABC model. And Sanjida, Waalaikumsalam. Oh, okay, you couldn't join because of the loud construction noises. That's really great that you joined. And yeah, that's really insightful observation, right? Ending the session with when's the last time you feel happy so that the person can have good memories and feel hopeful. That's a lovely idea. That's really nice. And I think Maria, oh, okay, you were the helper. Okay, I'm glad you volunteered for that and you joined the activity.
All right. So some of you have shared, or 7 of you, thank you so much. Okay, so the first question here, if we have thoughts of hanging ourselves, does it mean that we are suicidal? Even if we know we would not do it. Okay, if we have the thoughts, okay, but we have no intention to do it. Are we suicidal? What do you think, Farah?
Okay, so what I want to start with is that it's quite normal for majority of humans to have thoughts about, right? And so here the thought is about hanging yourself. Has anyone ever seen a ledge when you're in a tall building or you're near the sea, and then sometimes just the thought just cross your mind, like what would happen if I jumped? What happened if I was in the deep part of the water? So it's just one of those things that's just a thought. So there's a big difference between a thought versus actual intention to do it. It doesn't mean that you're necessarily suicidal, that if you're thinking of hanging yourself. So that's part of the reason why the suicide risk assessment in step 3, when you inquire about the suicide, you want to go in depth into okay, so you have the thought, what does the thought look like, and did you actually do anything with the Intan, you want to add anything?
Yeah, great answer, Farah. So that is suicidal ideation, right? So suicidal ideation, it is used to describe a range of like contemplations or like our wishes or like our preoccupations of death and suicide, macam tu. And then we have to be aware of our suicidal ideation because it would lead to suicide attempt. And suicide attempt would then lead to suicide completion. So it does not necessarily mean that you are suicidal, but it is something that we have to take note of. Yeah, thank you for your question. Let's move on. Let's see. Well-explained topic by Miss Intan and Miss Farah. It is a very eye-opening content. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Wow, that's very heartwarming. And thanks for the techniques
Dr.
shared.
Intan Zawana, can I say something?
Oh, yes, okay, sure.
Okay, thank you very much, MashaAllah. I'm sorry because I could join this webinar a bit late, but I got very important things here. For example, as helper, we have to understand the situation. I mean, sometimes this is suicide. We have to see, for example, Alex, for example, okay. So we have to know how serious that he wants to suicide. If we can we must, what we call it, we have to think very fast. So when we persuade him, the time limited also is, the time limitation is very important. Because kita takut dia memang betul nak jump ataupun baru macam rasa nak jump. So there's two different things. If he really want to jump, memang serius sangat dia punya problem tu, so the way we persuade tu memang kena lebih what we call deep, kena cepat. Kita tak boleh take long time nak pujuk dia. Itu for my opinion lah. Tapi kalau nampak dia macam 50-50, tak nak tu, maybe masih lagi ada masa untuk persuade dia, pujuk dia. Itu for my opinion. And at the same time, kita kena tengok if possible we know dia punya background, Muslim ke, Indian ke, Christian ke, whatsoever, itu juga I think plays its role. Kita nak pujuk dia. Sebab kalau orang Islam, kita ajak dia untuk so I mean kalau Muslim, cara kita lain sikit. Kalau non-Muslim, I think a bit different. So like that lah. So only opinion. Thank you very much, everyone. Congratulations.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Zakaria, for your, that's a really good observation. And Mama, thank you. Okay, so we have to wrap up real quick. So let's just
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Savaria. And so thanks for the technical chat. Okay, let them speak. Person who have suicide. Yes, all we can do is listen to them, and sometimes that is all that they need. Yeah. Thank you for your questions. What should I do? We're sorry we cannot answer them all right now. The webinar is really insightful. Usually panicking is the incident, but now I know a bit more on how to help. I would be glad to hear that. There are many cases of people ending their lives from high buildings. Why is it happening among young adults? Good question. We'll take note of that. Thank you. Reflection and excellent sharing. Thank you so much, and thank you so much, everyone. I feel so validated and safe in this webinar. Oh, thank you so much. We're so happy to hear that. And yeah, thank you for being here with us today. So heartwarming and wonderful to attend this webinar. Oh, it's very wonderful to have you here as well. Very evidence-based content and presented in such fun and engaging classy way. Oh, thank you so much. And thank you very much. Excellent talk. Yeah, thank you so much for the reflection. And
then we got from my Anna. Thank you for the good session, guys. Okay, thank you, everybody.
Sorry, we cannot answer the questions. Well, probably you can reach us via email, via the clinic if you want to, for the questions just now. And yeah.
Okay, so yeah, what intention?
Thank you so much.
If you want us to answer, you can reach out to the PSU. Thank you, everybody. We're so good.
Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. Assalamualaikum.
Thank you.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Jazakumullah khairan. Good luck, Wan Farah and Dr. Intan Zawana. Nice to meet you. I tak kenal semua, tak sempat kenal semua pun. Okay, thank you. Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I think you guys should take group photo.
Oh yeah, we can.